The sun was setting over the San Fernando Valley, casting long, golden shadows across the asphalt of a business park in Santa Clarita. The air was filled with the scent of burning rubber and the deafening roar of a high-performance engine, a sound that had become synonymous with a global film franchise. But this was not a movie set. There were no cameras rolling, no stunt coordinators, no safety nets. This was real life, and in a fraction of a second, the world would change forever. A flash of fire, the screech of twisting metal, and a plume of black smoke rising into the California sky marked the end of a journey for two men, one of whom was a Hollywood superstar who had captured the hearts of millions. The news would spread like wildfire, leaving a global fan base in a state of shock and disbelief, struggling to process the sudden and violent end to a life that seemed so full of promise. The story of this golden-haired surfer boy, who never quite believed he belonged in the spotlight, is one of breathtaking highs, profound personal struggles, and a tragic, untimely end. It is the story of Paul William Walker IV. Before the fame, before the screaming fans and the box office records, he was simply a boy from Glendale, a quiet suburb nestled in the heart of Los Angeles County. Born on September 12, 1973, Paul was the second of 5 children born to Paul William Walker III, a tough-as-nails sewer contractor who was also a 2-time Golden Gloves boxing champion, and Cheryl Crabtree Walker, a former fashion model with an eye for style and grace. Their home was a bustling, lively place, filled with the chaos and camaraderie that only a large family can provide. Paul grew up alongside his 2 younger brothers, Caleb and Cody, and 2 sisters, Ashley and Amy. The Walker household was a blend of discipline and creativity, a place where the values of hard work and athleticism were instilled from a young age, yet the allure of the arts and performance was also present. His paternal grandfather, William Walker, was a man of immense courage and strength, a Pearl Harbor survivor who had also been a Navy middleweight boxing champion. Meanwhile, his maternal grandfather commanded a tank battalion in Italy under the legendary General Patton during World War II. This rich tapestry of military heroism and resilience was part of Paul's DNA, a legacy of strength that he carried with him, even if he never fully understood its weight. Growing up in the 1970s and 80s, the San Fernando Valley was a sprawling landscape of suburban homes, strip malls, and freeways. It was a quintessential slice of Southern California life, and for young Paul, it was paradise. He was a natural athlete, a boy who thrived on physical activity and the great outdoors. He was heavily involved in sports, with soccer and surfing becoming his twin passions. He spent countless hours on the soccer field, honing his skills and learning the value of teamwork. But it was the ocean that truly called to him. The feeling of catching a wave, of being propelled by the raw power of the Pacific, was a feeling of pure, unadulterated freedom. This love for the ocean and its creatures was more than just a hobby. It was a defining part of his identity, a constant thread that would weave its way through his entire life. The neighborhood where he grew up was filled with other kids who shared his love for adventure, and the streets of Glendale became their playground. It was a simple, uncomplicated childhood, a world away from the glitz and glamour of Hollywood, even though it was just a short drive away. His educational journey took him to the Village Christian High School in Sun Valley, California. It was a private, faith-based institution that provided a structured environment, but Paul was never one to be confined by rules. He was a popular kid, blessed with striking good looks and an easygoing charm that made him instantly likable. He was active in sports, but his mind was also focused on his studies, particularly in the sciences. He graduated in 1991, but unlike many of his peers who had a clear path mapped out, Paul was unsure of his direction. He had a deep, abiding love for the natural world, and his dream was to become a marine biologist. This passion was so profound that after high school, he enrolled in several community colleges across Southern California, majoring in marine biology. He was a diligent student, spending his days in classrooms and laboratories, dreaming of a life spent exploring the depths of the ocean. He was, by all accounts, a regular, grounded young man, far more interested in the study of marine life than the pursuit of acting, a profession that was about to come calling for him again. Paul's first brush with the entertainment industry had come at a very young age. As a baby, he appeared in a television commercial for Pampers diapers. A few years later, at the age of 2, he was a model, his cherubic face and bright eyes making him a natural in front of the camera. His first real foray into acting was a small role in the 1986 horror comedy film Monster in the Closet, where he played a character named Professor Bennett. He also had a small part in the first season of the family sitcom Throb. These were fleeting experiences, but they left an impression. He liked the work, but it wasn't his primary ambition. For a time, he stepped away from the camera entirely, focusing on his studies and his life as a normal teenager. However, the acting world was not done with him. Encouraged by friends and an old casting agent who remembered him from his childhood work, he decided to give it another shot. He landed a small role in the 1994 film Tammy and the T-Rex, a bizarre sci-fi comedy that has since become a cult classic. This was a minor role, but it was a start, rekindling a flame that had been dormant for years. The late 1990s marked the beginning of Paul's steady ascent in Hollywood. He landed a role in the 1998 film Meet the Deedlers, a campy, silly movie about two surfer dudes causing chaos in Yellowstone National Park. The film failed to make a significant impact, but it was a learning experience. Later that same year, he appeared in the critically acclaimed film Pleasantville, a brilliant and thought-provoking comedy drama. In it, he played the town stud, a 1950s jock who gets more than he bargained for when he meets a modern-day girl played by Reese Witherspoon. The film was a hit, and Paul's performance was noted as one of the most memorable parts of the movie. It was a clear sign that he had more talent than the typical heartthrob. Then came 1999, a year that would truly change the trajectory of his career. He starred in the hit sports drama Varsity Blues as Lance Harbor, a promising young quarterback whose football career and dreams of a college scholarship are threatened by a devastating knee injury. The role was a breakthrough, showcasing his ability to portray a character with depth and vulnerability. He followed this with a role in the teen romantic comedy She's All That, playing the charming and popular Dean Sampson, the ex-boyfriend of the lead character. These back-to-back successes in popular films cemented his status as a rising star. By the year 2000, Paul Walker was no longer a secret. He was chosen as one of the young stars featured on the cover of Vanity Fair's annual Hollywood issue. It was a definitive sign that he had arrived. In a photograph filled with brooding, serious actors trying to look sexy and intense, Paul stood out by doing the exact opposite. He smiled brightly, radiating a warmth and lack of pretension that was rare in the industry. As the Dallas Morning News noted in March of 2000, Paul was one of the rarest birds in Hollywood, a pretension-free movie star. He was the real deal, a genuinely nice guy in a town full of egos. This genuine nature, combined with his undeniable good looks and burgeoning talent, made him a favorite among casting directors and audiences alike. He followed his Vanity Fair appearance with the thriller The Skulls, a film about a secret society at an Ivy League university, which further solidified his box office appeal. But none of these roles, as successful as they were, could have prepared him for the global phenomenon that was about to consume his life. In 2001, everything changed. Paul was cast as Brian O'Connor in The Fast and the Furious, a high-octane action film about illegal street racing and heists in Los Angeles. The film was a surprise smash hit, grossing over $200 million worldwide and catapulting its stars, Paul Walker and Vin Diesel, to international superstardom. For Paul, it was more than just a role. It was a perfect fusion of his personal passions and professional life. He was a self-confessed gearhead, a man who loved cars, speed, and the adrenaline rush of driving. Brian O'Connor was a character who lived and breathed that world, an undercover cop who gets drawn into the high-stakes world of street racing. Paul's portrayal of Brian was authentic. He wasn't just acting, he was being himself. He loved the cars, the camaraderie, and the sheer, unadulterated fun of it all. For Paul, it was a dream role, and as a token of his appreciation, he famously kept the character's signature sports car from the film. The movie established him as a leading man and action hero, a title he wore with a surprising degree of humility. The success of The Fast and the Furious was a double-edged sword. While it brought him fame and fortune, it also typecast him. He was now Brian O'Connor to millions of fans around the world. When Vin Diesel chose not to return for the sequel, Too Fast, Too Furious, Paul stepped up to lead the franchise. The 2003 film was another box office success, proving that the franchise could survive without its original star, largely thanks to Paul's charisma and the undeniable appeal of the high-speed action. He kept the momentum going with other films, including the road thriller Joyride in 2001 and the adventure film Into the Blue in 2005, in which he got to combine his love of acting with his love for the ocean. He also starred in the gritty crime drama Running Scared and the survival drama 8 Below, the latter earning him praise for his performance. In 2006, he took on a more serious role, portraying Hank Hansen in Clint Eastwood's Flags of Our Fathers, a harrowing World War II film about the Battle of Iwo Jima. These roles showed that he had range, that he was more than just a pretty face in a fast car. But the allure of the franchise that made him a star was always there, pulling him back. Throughout the late 2000s and into the 2010s, Paul continued to work steadily, appearing in films like the heist movie Takers in 2010. But it was the resurrection of the Fast Furious franchise that truly defined this period of his career. He reunited with Vin Diesel for Fast Furious in 2009, and the duo was back with a vengeance. The franchise evolved from simple street racing to globe-trotting heist adventures, and at its heart was the brotherhood between Dom Toretto and Brian O'Connor. The films became a global phenomenon, each installment outgrossing the last. Fast 5 in 2011 and Furious 6 in 2013 were massive hits, solidifying the franchise as one of the most successful in cinematic history. For Paul, these movies were more than just a job, they were a family. He developed deep, lasting bonds with his co-stars, particularly Vin Diesel, who became like a brother to him. They were a tight-knit group, a team that had grown up together on screen, and their chemistry was undeniable. This was the peak of his career, a time of immense professional success and personal fulfillment. But even at the height of his fame, Paul Walker remained an enigma. He was a reluctant celebrity, a man who never seemed entirely comfortable in the spotlight. He was a devoted father to his only child, Meadow Rain Walker, whom he shared with his childhood sweetheart, Rebecca Soderos. Meadow was born in November 1998, a life-changing event that Paul described as his #1 priority. Though he and Rebecca never married and eventually separated, he was a constant presence in his daughter's life. She lived with her mother in Hawaii for much of her childhood, but she would often visit Paul at his homes in Santa Barbara and Huntington Beach. He was deeply devoted to her, and he had her name, Meadow, tattooed on the inside of his right wrist, along with the Hawaiian state flower. He spoke about her with immense pride, telling People magazine in 2006, "Every day I pick her up from school, and we go out on a longboard." Fatherhood grounded him, providing a sense of purpose that transcended the superficiality of Hollywood. His personal life was remarkably low-key for a man of his stature. He was not one for the LA party scene or the endless red carpets. He preferred the simple life. He resided in Huntington Beach and Santa Barbara, California, where he could surf every day. He was a quiet, introspective soul who found peace in the ocean and the outdoors. He was also a dedicated philanthropist. In 2010, he founded Reach Out Worldwide ROWW, a non-profit organization aimed at providing relief to areas devastated by natural disasters. He was not a celebrity who just signed a check. He was on the ground, getting his hands dirty. He traveled to Chile in 2010 to help victims of a devastating earthquake, and he was in the process of planning a relief mission for the victims of Typhoon Haiyan in the Philippines at the time of his death. This was the real Paul Walker, the man the public rarely saw. He was a man who was more interested in surfing, traveling, his daughter, and helping the less fortunate than being a movie star. He was a paradox, a man who lived a life of extreme wealth and fame but who found his true fulfillment in service and in the simple pleasures of life. At the time of his death, Paul Walker was worth an estimated $25 million. His wealth afforded him a lifestyle that most people could only dream of. He was a passionate car collector, amassing a collection of over 20 cars, trucks, and motorcycles. His garage was a sanctuary, filled with some of the most sought-after and high-performance vehicles in the world. His love for cars was not a frivolous hobby. It was a true passion, a deep-seated appreciation for engineering and design. He was a professional race car driver and worked with AE Performance. When he wasn't acting or engaging in philanthropy, he could often be found at the track, pushing cars to their limits, or working on them in his garage. It was a lifestyle that was the envy of many, but for Paul, it was simply the natural expression of his love for speed and mechanics. However, even the brightest stars have their darker chapters. Like many who achieve fame at a young age, Paul grappled with the pressures of the industry. While he never had any major public scandals or legal troubles, the documentary I Am Paul Walker revealed that fatherhood was initially difficult for him. He admitted that emotionally, he wasn't ready for the responsibility. He struggled to balance his career with his role as a father, a guilt that weighed heavily on him. He also battled with the trappings of fame. He didn't like watching himself on screen and would only watch his own movies once. He was plagued by a sense of imposter syndrome, a feeling that he didn't belong in the world he had found himself in. He was a man who was deeply insecure, a far cry from the confident action hero he portrayed on screen. These struggles were mostly private, hidden behind his trademark smile. But those who knew him well saw a man who was constantly searching for meaning and purpose, a man who was far more comfortable in the ocean than on a red carpet. He was, in many ways, a man at war with his own fame. In the months and weeks leading up to his death, Paul was in the middle of filming Furious 7, the 7th installment of the franchise that had made him a household name. He seemed happy and healthy, and the production was going well. He was back with his family, working alongside Vin Diesel and the rest of the cast. But there was a sense of urgency to his life. He was acutely aware of the fragility of life, and he was determined to make the most of every moment. He was not just an actor, he was a father, a son, a brother, and a philanthropist. He was a man with a deep love for the ocean, and he had even appeared on the National Geographic Channel series Expedition Great White to study and tag great white sharks, combining his love for marine biology with his love for adventure. He was living a life that was full and rich, a life that was about to be cut short in the most sudden and tragic way possible. The day was November 30th, 2013. It was a Saturday, and Paul had driven to Santa Clarita, a city about 30 miles north of Los Angeles, to attend a charity event for Reach Out Worldwide. The event was a car show and fundraiser to benefit the victims of Typhoon Haiyan, a cause that was incredibly close to his heart. The atmosphere was joyful and celebratory. Paul, ever the humble star, was mingling with fans, signing autographs, and posing for pictures. It was a typical, wonderful day for a man who dedicated so much of his time to helping others. At around 3:30 in the afternoon, the event was winding down, and Paul decided to take a short drive with his friend and financial advisor, Roger Roders. Roger, a 38-year-old professional race car driver, was behind the wheel of Paul's 2005 Porsche Carrera GT, a rare and incredibly powerful supercar. They had been at the charity event, and now they were taking the car out for a spin, a final thrill before the day was done. They pulled out of the parking lot and onto the streets of the Rye Canyon Business Park in the Valencia community of Santa Clarita. The Porsche Carrera GT is a beast of a machine, capable of breathtaking speeds. For reasons that remain unknown, Roger Roders lost control of the vehicle. The car, traveling at a high rate of speed, veered off the road, smashing into a light pole and then a tree. The impact was catastrophic. The car was torn apart, and almost immediately, it burst into flames. The scene was one of utter devastation. When deputies arrived, they found the vehicle engulfed in flames, a twisted, burning wreck. Both Paul and Roger were trapped inside. They were pronounced dead at the scene. The news would later confirm that Paul Walker, the beloved star of the Fast and the Furious, had died at the age of 40. The cause of death was determined to be the combined effects of traumatic injuries and burns sustained in the crash. The news broke like a thunderclap, spreading across the internet and television screens with incredible speed. Social media was flooded with messages of shock and grief. Fans around the world were in disbelief. How could this have happened? How could the man who was the embodiment of speed and vitality, the man who had cheated death in so many movies, have died in such a mundane, senseless way? The irony was brutal and cruel. The actor who had made a career out of high-speed car chases had been killed in a car crash. The immediate public reaction was one of profound sadness and confusion. Tributes began pouring in from all corners of the globe. The Fast Furious family was devastated. Vin Diesel, who was in the middle of filming, was absolutely heartbroken. He traveled to the site of the crash, speaking to the gathered mourners over a loudspeaker from a police officer's car. His words were a poignant tribute to his fallen brother, expressing gratitude for the outpouring of love for Paul and assuring the fans that their support meant the world to his family. He said, "I just want to say to all of you, if my brother were here right now and he saw all of the love you are bringing here, if he could see for himself that all of you have shown up to show my brother love, at this hard time, his family gets to see all of you show the love that you've shown Paul. It's going to stay with me, forever. I just wanted to say thank you." The aftermath of his death was a blur of grief and legal proceedings. Paul's remains were cremated. A private memorial service for his family, close friends, and the cast and crew of the Fast Furious series was held on December 15, 2013. He was finally laid to rest at the Forest Lawn Memorial Park Cemetery in the Hollywood Hills. His gravesite became a place of pilgrimage for fans, a place to pay tribute and reflect on his life. His father, Paul Walker III, and his daughter, Meadow, filed separate wrongful death lawsuits against Porsche, the manufacturer of the car. The lawsuits were eventually settled out of court. The legal battles were a painful epilogue to a tragic story, but they were a necessary step for his family to seek some semblance of justice and closure. In a touching gesture of gratitude, the City Council of Pelluju, Chile, decided to name the main street of a new neighborhood Paul Walker Street, in honor of the aid he had provided to the victims of the 2010 earthquake there. It was a testament to the kind of man he was, a man whose legacy extended far beyond the silver screen. Paul Walker's legacy is a complex and enduring one. He left behind a body of work that defined a generation of action cinema. The Fast Furious franchise became a global juggernaut, and his character, Brian O'Connor, was at its heart. His final film, Furious 7, was released in 2015, a year and a half after his death. The film was a massive hit, and it featured a deeply emotional tribute to Paul, using CGI and his brothers Caleb and Cody as stand-ins to complete his scenes. The ending of the film, with Dom and Brian driving off into the sunset, was a beautiful and heartbreaking farewell that moved audiences to tears. It was a fitting send-off for a beloved star. But Paul's legacy is about more than just movies. He was a man who used his fame for good, a philanthropist who was deeply committed to helping others. His Reach Out worldwide organization continues to operate, providing aid to disaster-stricken areas around the world. It is a living testament to his compassion and his desire to make a difference. His daughter, Meadow, has carried on his legacy, managing the Paul Walker Foundation and continuing his work. She has also launched campaigns to build schools for underprivileged children, ensuring that her father's spirit of generosity lives on. In the end, Paul Walker was a man of contradictions. He was a movie star who hated the spotlight. He was a man who lived life in the fast lane but found his truest peace in the quiet of the ocean. He was a devoted father who struggled with the demands of parenthood. He was a reluctant hero who became an icon. His story is a powerful reminder of the fragility of life, of how quickly it can all be taken away. He was a man who lived 5 lifetimes in 40 years, and he left an indelible mark on the world. He changed the face of action cinema, redefining what it meant to be a hero on screen. He showed that you could be a tough guy and still have a heart of gold. He showed that you could be a superstar and still remain humble and kind. He showed that you could be a man of action and a man of compassion. He showed that you could be a father, a son, a brother, a friend, and a force for good in a world that desperately needs it. Paul William Walker IV is gone, but he is not forgotten. He is remembered every year on the anniversary of his death, November 30th. He is remembered in the roar of engines, in the crash of waves on the shore, and in the smiles of the children his charity has helped. He is remembered in the hearts of his family, his friends, and the millions of fans who grew up watching him. His story is a testament to the power of a life well lived, a life that burned bright and ended far too soon. He was a man who taught us that it's not the years in your life that count, but the life in your years. He was a man who reminded us that the most important thing is not how fast you go, but who you have beside you on the journey. He was, and always will be, a legend. And as his final film so poignantly reminds us, it is not goodbye, but see you later. For the family he built, for the fans he inspired, and for the world he left behind, Paul Walker will forever be a symbol of the beauty and the tragedy of a life lived to its fullest. He was a rare bird in Hollywood, a man without pretension, a man who showed us that being a star meant being human first. And for that, we will always be grateful. If this story of a life so full of promise, cut tragically short, has moved you, we ask you to join our community of remembrance. Please like this video to show your appreciation for the legacy of Paul Walker. Subscribe to the Before Die channel, where we honor the lives of the legends we have lost, and share their untold stories with the world. We want to hear from you. Tell us in the comments below, what is your favorite Paul Walker memory? Was it a scene from The Fast and the Furious that made you fall in love with cars? Was it his heartwarming performance in 8 Below? Or perhaps it was knowing about his incredible charity work that inspired you. Share your thoughts and memories with us and the rest of our community. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so you never miss another powerful and emotional documentary from Before Die. Thank you for watching, and for keeping the memory of Paul Walker alive.